So hello everyone, how are you doing today? My name is Mitch Kaniaru, trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another weekly swing where we'll be looking for trading opportunities. Remember, these are more long-term opportunities, mainly focusing on the 4-hour time frame, where we'll be looking to see where we can get some swing trades throughout the week. So we'll see what opportunities we can look at. But at least, as you can see, I'm not here alone. I'm here with John. Naomi is in the back office. So John, what's up?
I'm good. Thank God for life. Thank God for this day. So let's see what this week has to offer on the charts. And of course, for the guys watching this on YouTube, also remember to like and subscribe. And of course, even for the guys who are here, can always watch and rewatch this throughout the course of the week. Should be up later on our YouTube channel. So at least you can also end up doing that. You have that privilege, unlike on the daily analysis. So good. All right. So Mitch, you ready? Take it away.
So I guess we can start, since apologies also for starting late. So we can see, as usual, we start off with our watch list. Last week, this was our watch list based on the numbers, what pairs we're looking at are showing strength / weakness. So any number, as for those who are new, any number below or at least between 4 and 7 or -4 and 7. So any number between -3 and +3, those numbers do not really count. They're more neutral. So we only focus on the extremes. So last week, we're looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar, the yen, as well as the New Zealand dollar, and buying opportunities on the US dollar, as well as the euro. But you can see there's a slight difference in what we're looking at today. So we're still looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar. In fact, if we compare it to the last week, went from a -4 to a -6, meaning it's showing a lot more weakness. Now, similar situation with the US dollar. It was a 4, now it's become a 5, meaning it's showing more strength. The euro, you can see, has gone away from a 5 to a 1, so it's no longer showing a strength. And we will still be looking for selling opportunities on the New Zealand dollar. You can see the New Zealand dollar, it being a -6 there, similar to what it was last week. So our focus, you can be able to take a screenshot of this, will be this week. So this is our watch list for this week. So remember how we end up focusing, or at least how we use this watch list. We'll start off, let's say, with the Australian dollar pairs, mix and match that with only the pairs on the neutral side. So we'll do the same thing with the New Zealand dollar, the US dollar, as well as the British pound. So we can jump straight into it. So as usual, we'll end up having a look at what pairs that we had last week that we're not going to be looking at this week, see what opportunities we could have taken there before we do end up focusing on today's pairs. So don't worry about this. I'll keep coming back and forth towards this if you want to be able to take a screenshot. So starting off with the review pairs. Now, we'll start off here with the British pound against the Australian dollar. Last week, we were looking for buying opportunities. Now, we had looked for the buys according to these 3 levels. You can see them highlighted. And you can see the idea, or at least the trade idea we had. Initially, when we were discussing this market on Monday morning last week, can see the price was within this area. We did mention the price could end up still coming all the way back down to the main buyer's area, or we could end up seeing the price actually holding above here, potentially giving us some sort of probe. And remember, we always focus on 2 time frame. So even though we have the clear story on the bigger time frame, the 1 hour is where it will give us the proper entry criteria. So we can see the market attempted to come down, giving us a probe, and the price ended up holding to the upside, giving us at least this buying opportunity. This was around Tuesday. In a similar situation, we did also point out that the price is able to break and hold above this next, the aggressive area. You can also look for a buying opportunity. And you can see this worked out on Wednesday. And if you do notice the time, it was at 4 o'clock, which is the US market open for us here. So you can see there were very good opportunities on this, but unfortunately, we will no longer be looking for the buying opportunities on this pair, because you can see the British pound and the Australian dollar, even though one's on the sell side and the other is on the buy side, it's not necessarily going to give us much of a pullback. And that's the reason why we will not necessarily be focusing on it today. So moving on to the next pair for review, we did have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. In this pair, we were also meant to look for buying opportunities. Unfortunately, in this case, the buys did not fully work out. You can see the 3 areas we had pointed out. We're hoping to see if we could end up getting a pullback due to the fact that the price was within the seller's area, or at least if we did get the price breaching and holding above, we could have looked for those buying opportunities. But you can see every time the price attempted to go to the upside, it came straight back in. Attempted again to the upside, but came straight back in. And even though right now we've come back down, coming back towards this main area, even though the buy might attempt to actually work out today, it could end up giving us issues. So unfortunately, this one did not necessarily get a very nice opportunity for us, during the last week. And similar situation to this week, not a pair that we're going to be focusing on. So let's move on to the next pair that we do have, Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. Similar situation. Our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. Now, there were some buying opportunities right here. If I do go down to the 1 hour time frame just to see the review, can remember we had pointed out if we did get the price breaching and holding above this particular area, we could end up waiting for a pullback. And if we did look for that buy, you should make sure that you are targeting the main seller who did end up bringing it down, at least the new high that the market got to. So you can see if you did look for that buying opportunity, and you can see similar situation Wednesday at 4 o'clock, which is the US market open. The price did give us an opportunity, but you should have made sure you manage your trade here. You can see these sellers did give us issues, bringing this price down lower. And this is also one of the reasons why this is the pair that's going to be off our watch list for this week. But you can see we did end up getting some nice buying opportunities available there. So we'll move on to the next pair for review. We did have the British pound against the New Zealand dollar. British pound was showing a lot of strength last week. And you can see the three areas we did have, or at least we were looking for buying opportunities. Now, initially, or at least at the beginning of last week, the price was within an area where the sellers, we did either want a pullback to come in or these sellers area to be breached. And if the price was holding above, could have looked for buying opportunities. And we can see the same situation we're talking about here. It's exactly how we ended up actually drawing it. So looking at it on the 1 hour time frame, you can see once the price managed to breach this area to the upside. On the pullback and the price holding above, you can see it did give us a buying opportunity, taking the price up higher. So similar situation, even though this price did go up and the British pound is showing a lot of strength, this is a pair that won't necessarily give us a clear, or at least clear direction or clear entries, let's say, because most of the time, the reason why we focus on neutral pairs versus strong or weak pairs, those are the ones that are most likely to give you pullbacks. If you compare a strong and a weak pair, you'll find those markets just going, but you won't necessarily end up getting much of a pullback. So moving on to the next pair that we do have, we did have the British pound against the US dollar. This kind of pair, we were looking for selling opportunities. Initially, when we were discussing the market, the price was within this buyer's area. We're hoping to see the price giving us some sort of pullback within this area because it did look as if it was in some sort of range. Now, it is still respecting those levels because you can't even see on the 1 hour time frame, the price managed to get all the way to this particular seller's area that we did have, and it did end up attempting to try and come down lower. Fortunately, could not get all the way to the main buyers that we did have here. It seems that there were some buyers within this area, the buyers who kept on pushing this price to the upside, and they did seem to keep on holding the market. So unfortunately, we did not get a very clear direction, or at least a clear trade on this. And it's also a situation which we'll not be focusing on today. Now, moving on to the next review pair, we did have the euro against Canadian dollar. In this kind of pair, we were meant to be looking for buying opportunities. You can see there was a small buying opportunity that it did give us, where we wanted to see if we could end up getting some sort of probe or price action signal within this particular buyer's area. And you can see that's exactly what happened, where you can see at the beginning of the week, the price managed to come down lower. Once it did give this huge probe to the upside, and you can see aggressive buyers coming in. On the pullback, the seller slowing down, it did give us a very nice buying opportunity. This seems to have been on Tuesday during the London market open. In fact, the Frankfurt market opens. You can see Tuesday there at 9 o'clock. That's when the Frankfurt market opens for us, which did end up going to the upside. Unfortunately, it could not get all the way to the main sellers right there at the top. It seems that it's found some sort of support and resistance area here, area which was resistance, support that did turn into a resistance area. So unfortunately, even though this trade did work out last week, it's not going to be on our watch list for this week. Now, moving on to the last pair that we did have for review. We did have the euro against the Swiss franc. In this kind of pair, bias was to look for buying opportunities. You can see it did have two attempts. First attempt within this particular area gave us some sort of probe when the price was holding above. Could have looked for a buying opportunity there. But remember, I had pointed out there was some sellers who are pushing the price down lower. So we needed to watch out for those sellers right there. You can see the price managed to get that seller's area before it managed to come all the way down. Now you can see the levels that we always point out, they do end up still being respected. So the price managed to come all the way down to this main buyer's area, and you can see the buyers have reacted, taking the price up higher. Now it would have been a bit difficult to get this buying opportunity right there because you can't even see on the 1 hour time frame, it was just a huge pin bar. So unless you did end up entering based on the pin bar, you could have made some money there. But unfortunately for us, this is a pair that we're not going to be focusing on this week. So I hope that is all clear. Those are all the pairs that we did have last week that we're not going to be focusing on today. But I do end up hoping you are learning from what we're doing, from the previous things of what happened and seeing how you can adjust your trading to take advantage this week. So I hope that's clear. So we can end up starting to focus on today's pairs. So before we do end up looking at the currency pairs, as usual, we'll start off with gold and the Dow Jones, in which case this week we will be looking for selling opportunities on both. So we'll start off with gold. Now, gold last week, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation this week. Now, according to last week, we did have these three areas where we could end up looking for selling opportunities from. Remember, we had pointed out the price initially during the week was within an area where the bias, similar situation to what's happening today. So we needed either a pullback to come in towards the support and resistance area, or if we did get the price breaching and holding below, we could have looked for a sell. As you can see, this is the idea that we did have. And you can see on the 1 hour time frame, you can see very clearly that once the market did breach, you can see the price pull back, showing us evidence that it was holding below. If you did not take that one on Monday, you can see it did give us another opportunity on Tuesday. This was around 4:30, around 5, which is around the New York Stock Exchange open. And you can see after that, the market did manage to continue going down all the rest of the week. So this week, our bias here is still to look for selling opportunities. Now we have adjusted the level slightly. So we'll be looking to see if we can grab selling opportunities based on these three areas. So we have the aggressive sellers area right there at the top. So we do know as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area, our bias should be to look for selling opportunities. Right now, you can see exactly where the price is at. We are within an area where they're biased. So it would be very risky to start looking for selling opportunities, even though we know the overall flow is to the downside and we know we want to sell. But remember, we need one of two options. We either need a pullback to come in or this level to be breached, this bias area to be breached. So it's a similar situation to what we were looking at last week. So if we could end up getting the price giving us some sort of pullback, if we can see a probe where the price looks as if it's breaching this area to the upside, but it actually comes back in and holds below, we could find a very nice selling opportunity available within this particular area. But be aware, similar situation to what happened last week, these buyers might end up giving up the ball. So you could end up easily seeing the price breaching to the downside. And if you do see that pullback and the price holds below, similar situation to what happened last week, we could end up looking for those selling opportunities. But for right now, you do need to be patient. Looking for a buy now would be very risky because overall, we're in a big seller's market. So that would be you going against the big boy. And it would be a counter trade. But if you are able to take, or at least you are able to read the market properly and be able to take advantage of those buys, if the price starts to go up, you can, but just watch out for all these problem areas and be aware that overall, we are still looking for those sells. Now, if this bias area doesn't hold and we do get the price breaching and holding below, then we definitely know the big boy sellers are still active and they're still strong and the buyers are no longer there and we should be able to continue looking for those selling opportunities. But remember, don't chase, always wait for those pullbacks to come in. So I hope the game plan is clear on what we're looking at to do on gold. So we move on to the next pair that we always look at, which is the Dow Jones, the US 30. Now, last week, our bias here was actually to look for buying opportunities. Now, unfortunately, the buys did not work out. You can see these three areas we had highlighted. Now, initially, the red support and resistance area was here, and we did point out if the price broke and held below the red SNR, then ideally, we'll start looking for selling opportunities, and the buys are going to be off. So in this situation, you can see initially the price was within a bias area at the beginning of the week. Now, unfortunately, we could not get the price actually continuing to go all the way up because we're hoping to see whether or not the buyers would actually come in. But unfortunately, the price came down low, came towards this bias area, and you can see there was a small reaction. But unfortunately, the buyers did not have strength before once the price breached to the downside, and you can see the pullback came in, giving us confirmation that the price was holding below. You could have looked for selling opportunities at that time. However, now, today, or at least this week, our bias here is to look for selling opportunities. So we'll focus on these new three areas that we will be looking at. So we do know, as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area, or at least this area right here, our bias is to look for those selling opportunities. You can see right now we're bounced off some strong bias area, it seems. So look to see if we can end up getting right now a pullback. You can see the pullback is coming back within a major area right there that we do end up having. So we look to see. Right now, we want to see what kind of reaction there will be. And remember, you can see that reaction on the 1 hour time frame. So watch to see how the buyers are coming in. Possibly a pullback is what's coming in. Could end up seeing some sort of probe or price action signal within this area before you do end up seeing sells. So what we wait to see? So one of two options could happen. Could end up finding the market giving us some sort of probe within this area. and you could end up seeing the price actually going down from this area. But if we do need more of a pullback, we'll look to see if we can end up getting the pullback coming in higher, especially if the price falls above this area. We could end up seeing the price pulling back towards this area, giving us some sort of probe or price action signal within that location before we're able to look for those selling opportunities as well. So I hope that is clear on the game plan of what we're looking to do on the Dow Jones. So at least the US 30. So hope that's clear. So right now we're going to move on to the currency pairs. So remember, we'll start off with the Australian dollar pairs, mix and match that with the neutral pairs before we move on to the New Zealand dollar, the US dollar, and the British pound, doing the exact same thing, mixing and matching them with the neutral pairs. So starting off with the Australian dollar pairs, we have the euro against the Australian dollar. John, what do you think we should be looking to do today?
Yeah, we're going to be looking to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. One thing, even just looking at the numbers, we're expecting more weakness to possibly end up coming in on the Australian dollar pairs this week. Last week, I think it was, a -4. I think we have a -6 this week. So possibly expecting to see more weakness coming in on this one. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. But of course, based on where the price is right now, it's not a good time to look for the buys. Let's see if we can either get the market breaking to the upside. If we get the market breaking to the upside, if we get a nice pullback coming back in within this region, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get the buys of that region right there. Alternatively, we can end up giving the sellers the benefit of doubt. So if the market does end up reacting to the downside, we could possibly find the market coming back in within this region, could find the market maybe even attempting to break to the downside, could get some sort of a probe within that particular region, and then you could get the buying opportunities working off that area. The good thing about this one is that you can see that the market has been making a sequence of higher highs and higher lows, but we always need to make sure that we're waiting for the pullback. So let's see what happens. Hopefully we get the bridge to the upside. Then we could resume with the buys. Alternatively, let's see what the sellers can do. If they bring the market down lower, could find the market coming back in within this region. But also remember that also a deeper pullback can also end up coming back in all the way to that region at the bottom right there. So also keep that option open in case the market does come in there. Could find a price action signal there, and then you could find the buys possibly working off that region there. So hopefully guys have taken note of that. So I think we can move on to the next Australian dollar pair, which is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. For the guys who are new, bear in mind that the Australian dollar, and the other one is a counter currency pair. On this one, it's the base currency pair. It's the one to the left. So it's the basis of what we're doing. So for this one, almost like some sort of a similar situation, but inverted. We're looking for sells, but you can't see that the market is at support. So we need to either see the market break to the downside, and we need to see a nice strong breach to the downside. Maybe the market might come back in within this particular region right here, and we could look for the selling opportunities at that point in time. But also make sure that you take note of the lowest region where the market gets down until, because that will definitely be your next problem area. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But alternatively, since we're within a buyer's region, consider the buyers have reacted off here quite a number of times. So just give them the benefit of doubt. If they do end up pushing the market back up, then we could find the sells working off that region somewhere there. Could find the market attempting to break to the upside. If it doesn't, then at least you could look for your selling opportunities at that point in time, especially if the market does end up coming back in and does end up holding to the downside. You could target as low as wherever you want to target, but just make sure that you really watch out for that region right there. So hopefully you've taken note of that, but also remember the red SNR at the top. Maybe the market could be in some sort of a range on the bigger time frame. And you could find that for the earlier part of the week, the market could be on the pullback phase, coming back in within that region there. Then you could find that later on in the week, that's when the big sales could possibly end up happening. So also just make sure that you also do watch out for that, just purely based on the structure that we can see the market possibly trying to adapt. So hopefully you've taken note of that. And I guess you can look at the next Australian dollar pair, which is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one last week, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten sales. So you can see the three regions right there that we had pointed out. The market couldn't pull back in all the way to the region at the top there, but you can't see that it broke this region right here to the downside, pulled back in. I think later on in the week, attempted to come down lower, but it's like the sellers did possibly end up running out of steam. But this week, we'll still be trying to see whether we can get sells, and hopefully we should see more weakness coming in on the Australian dollar pairs. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market pulling back in. Hopefully, if it does come back in somewhere as close as possible within that region, we could possibly try and see whether we could get some sells. And hopefully that might incite some buyers to possibly come in, and hopefully we'll see the sellers possibly get interested with pushing the market down lower. Alternatively, we could wait and see whether we could get a deeper pullback. There's still a possibility the sellers might need this price somewhere at the top, somewhere within this region right here. And that will definitely incite more buyers to come into the market for the sellers to possibly end up looking to pump in their selling orders. So watch out for those two. Of course, there's a possibility the market could break this region to the downside. But ideally, based on where the price is right now, hopefully the pullback is what we want to see. So it's just a matter of how deep is the pullback going to come in. Are we going to see the pullback here or somewhere at the top, somewhere within that region there? So let's just wait and see. But hopefully, guys can end up taking note of that and remembering that if the market breaks the red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. We'll simply have to wait and see if the market can break the red SNR to the downside. Then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So hopefully that's clear for guys. So I guess we can look at the last AUD pair, which is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair we had last week. Trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that we had and also what we were expecting. And you can see that for this one, almost like some sort of a similar situation with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. There wasn't much of a pullback, but if you are reading this on a smaller time frame, you can see that within this region here, the market did actually break to the downside. You could read the pullback on the 1 hour time frame, and off that area, I think it must have been on Wednesday or something. You can see that the market did actually end up coming to the downside. Yeah, so from Wednesday, you can see that the market did come down pretty well. So for this one this week, we're going to be waiting either to see whether we can get the market either breaking to the downside. If it does, could wait for the pullback, could try and resume the selling opportunities on the pullback, not when the market is trying to break. So be well aware of that. Alternatively, since we're within some sort of a buyer's region, let's see if they can push the market back up, hopefully somewhere within this region right here. We could possibly try and time and see whether we could get the sells somewhere within this region right here. It's definitely a seller's region, also a good area to try and see whether we could get the selling opportunities if the opportunity does end up showing up. But also remember that the region at the top, there's also a possibility price can come back in all the way till within that area there. So just be on the lookout for it. But ideally, the best area right now that you should be focusing on is definitely that region in the middle. If the market breaks above that, then I think you can end up shifting your focus to the area at the top to really try and see what happens if the market does end up coming up all the way to the red SNR. So hopefully you've taken note of that. And that's pretty much it for all the AUD pairs. So just Mitch, back to you.
Okay. So remember, we've looked at the Australian dollar pairs. Remember, since we're looking to sell the AUD, we're only mixing and matching them with the pairs that we need to. So we're done with the Australian dollar pairs. So we'll move on to the New Zealand dollar pairs and do the exact same thing. So we'll start off with the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So similar situation, brand new entry on our watch list. And on this pair, our bias here is to look for buying opportunities. Now, we'll focus on these three areas because even when we're looking at the market, most people can easily tell that this price has been going to the upside. So right now, we definitely know we want to look for buying opportunities. Looking at the market structure, seems to have entered some sort of small range within this area. It does look as if it's attempting to break this area to the upside. But remember, that's not confirmed yet. In order for us to look for the buy, we need to see something like this where it's a proper strong breach. And on that pullback, if the price holds above, that's when you can be able to look for those buying opportunities. But I've seen many times and many people being incited because if everyone, it looks so obvious to everyone right now that they're jumping in on buys, where would they put their stop losses? Below these buyers right here. So you might end up finding all those late buyers, they could end up getting stopped out. When the price ends up coming all the way down here, everyone starts switching. They stop thinking that it's a buy. They start thinking that it's going to be going down and it's a sell. And for us, we don't necessarily or at least we don't want to be incited like that. we need to see some sort of probe, or at least we want that incitement to come in. Because remember, there is no new money made in Forex. If you're making money, someone else is losing money. So you need to trade against someone else. So in this case, since we want to buy, right now would not be the best place to buy unless we do get very strong buyers coming in. And if the price holds above, then we can continue looking for buying opportunities. But for right now, let's wait for that confirmation. If the price comes in below, in fact, this buy right here at the bottom would be much, much better, because at least by that time, more people are looking for sales. And remember, if you want to buy something, you need people who are willing to sell to you. So that's a similar situation. So we want to incite those people to come in before we're able to look for those buys. So I hope that's clear, the game plan of what we're looking at on the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So we'll move on to the next New Zealand dollar pair, which is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, this kind of pair of bias here is to look for sales. Remember, as had pointed out, the New Zealand dollar, in this case, is the base currency. So we are looking to sell the New Zealand dollar. So we can see the market structure. This market seems to have been ranging for quite a while, bouncing between these two levels. And right now, it's the first time that it's actually breaking this area to the downside. So we'll be focusing on these three levels to look for selling opportunities. Right now, I've not gotten full confirmation that the range has actually been broken. So even though we're focusing on these three levels, we're back within an area where the buyers, we could easily find that if the price comes back in and holds above, then it means that this range is still active, right? So this is just going to be a huge probe. And if that's the case, that's when we'll end up looking for our selling opportunities at the top. So if we do see something like this and the price comes in and holds above, then we look to see if we can end up getting those selling opportunities right there at the top before we're able to take the price down lower. But be aware that if the price actually holds below, so there's a very high possibility if we could end up getting the price coming in, actually coming back in and holding below, then we'll definitely be able to look for a selling opportunity at the bottom of this range. Because you can see these are very strong buyers area, which has held the market for quite a while. So in order for it to be breached, a strong support area becomes a strong resistance area. So if this level holds, you could find a nice selling opportunity there. But if the price goes and holds above, then we'll look to see if we can grab the sells at the top of this particular range. So just watch out for those levels. Be aware that even as we've seen the New Zealand dollar, the euro against the New Zealand dollar, we could end up finding this area being breached to the downside. So it's a similar situation. Just because we're within a buyer's area, we're expecting, yes, the price to go up. But if these buyers don't have anything and the price is able to break this area and hold below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities on the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So I hope that's clear on the game plan of what we're looking at on the New Zealand dollar against the yen. So we'll move on to the next New Zealand dollar pair, which is the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. Now, in this kind of pair, our bias last week was to look for selling opportunities. It is still the same situation this week, but unfortunately, you can see last week, even though we're looking for sales, the market never really went anywhere. It just seemed to have been ranging, bouncing between these two levels, not necessarily breaking any level to the downside. But we can see right now the pricing is attempting. Could have something to do with the New Zealand dollar pairs, because we did see also the euro against the New Zealand dollar looked as if it's attempting to break. So we need to see if it's an actual real breach or it's going to just be a probe. So we'll focus on these three levels to look for these selling opportunities. Right now, since we're within that buyer's area, at least this buyer's area right here at the bottom, want to see what exactly will happen. So if a number of things can end up happening, the price is able to break this area to the downside and hold below, then definitely we should be able to continue looking for those selling opportunities. But if this ends up being some sort of probe where you find the price actually coming back in and holding above, then you could end up seeing the price coming all the way to our extreme sellers area right there. Maybe needs to incite more people to actually start jumping in on buys before we're able to continue looking for those selling opportunities. So we'll be watching out for these levels and on the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. Be aware we are looking for sell as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area. So for right now, our focus should be these two levels. The only time we'll focus on the aggressive area is if we see no reaction within this middle area. And at that point in time, and if the price breaches and holds above, that's when we look at the extreme area for a selling opportunity. The price breaches and holds above the red SNR, remember this pair will fall off our watch list. So I hope that's clear on the game plan on the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So moving on to the last New Zealand dollar pair. Here we have the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. Similar situation to last week. We were looking for selling opportunities. Now we have adjusted the levels slightly. As you can see, these were the levels we were focusing on. Last week, similar situation. We were within an area where the buyers. So we needed either a pullback to come in or this area to be breached to the downside. So you can see we did have this temporary area last week. It attempted to break this area multiple times, which it struggled, entering some sort of small range, bouncing between these two levels. But you can see once it breached the downside, we did manage to give a pullback, but only managed to come just still to the same low that we did end up having. So this week we've adjusted the level slightly because it does seem that the market is definitely respecting these three levels. So we look to see if we can end up grabbing a selling opportunity within this particular area with this there. So we do have a seller's area a buyer's area here. And we've seen on all these other New Zealand dollar pairs, it couldn't be showing a lot of weakness right now. They are attempting to break these areas to the downside. So we'll wait to see what happens. If we do end up getting the price actually breaching and holding below this particular area, have a look at the other New Zealand dollar pairs. So you could end up finding there could be some sort of correlation coming in. So if you see the price breaching and holding below on all the other New Zealand dollar pairs, we could end up finding some nice selling opportunities there. But if it ends up just being a probe, because remember, we're within a buyer's area, and definitely many late sellers are possibly jumping in on their sales right now. So they could end up needing to be stopped out, and you could end up seeing the price giving us some sort of pullback, price holding above this particular area for us to look for a selling opportunity. So we'll watch out for these three levels. Be aware that as long as we're holding below the red SNR, our buyers will always be looking for selling opportunities. Unless we get the price breaching and holding above, then this pair will fall off our watch list. So I hope that's clear. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar with the neutral pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the US dollar pairs and the USD and the British pound pairs. So John, starting off with the euro against the US dollar.
All right, so for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. Also, we're watching out for buying opportunities on the USD last week as well. Last week it was 4. This week it's a 5. So we're expecting to see even way more strength on the USD. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some sells. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in within there. Seems like the market broke some sort of a structure. Seems like the market was in some sort of a range there. Let's see if we can get the pullback coming in. Hopefully we get the market pulling back in within that region. We'll try and see whether we could time some selling opportunities at that point in time. Alternatively, since the market seems to have already established some sort of a downward flow going down, in case we don't end up getting the pullback coming in, we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully we can get a nice strong breach of that region to the downside. Then we could possibly try and see whether we could get the pullback coming in, and hopefully the sellers could possibly end up resuming. So also due to the fact that the USD is possibly going to be showing way more strength this week, don't know if the pullback is going to come in deep. But remember that we speculate, the market has a mind of its own. So you still could find the pullback coming in as deep as all the way up there. So still keep that option open. In case it does, then you could still try and see whether you could get some sells all the way there. But those are going to be more or less the last selling opportunities that we'll be watching out for. But ideally, do end up focusing on at least this region right here and also this region right here. Let's see what happens within those two areas there. So hopefully you guys have taken note of that. So moving on into the next one, which is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buys. At least this one, you can see that the market has been moving up. Once again, for the guys who are new, bear in mind that the US dollar is the base currency pair. Like on the other one, it's the counter currency pair. So for this one, let's see if we can get a breach to the upside of that region there, get the market pulling back in within this region. Then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities somewhere within that region there. So you could watch out for that. Alternatively, what you could end up doing is you could wait and see if the market does end up pulling back in within this region here, then you could possibly try and see whether you could get some buying opportunities, maybe a bit lower, maybe somewhere within this region here. So could watch out for that. But ideally, don't look for the buying opportunities, especially when the market is coming back in within this region here. You could find that the sellers are still sitting there. It's still more or less a region of resistance. You can see that the market was coming up last week. They found some sort of a resistance area there. So do somehow expect some sort of a reaction, maybe of the sellers. Then you could easily find the market coming back in within that region there. So hopefully you've taken note of that. But also remember the region at the bottom. In case the sellers do end up deciding to really push back the market quite a long distance, then the deeper pullback could ideally put the market back in within here. And it's still more or less an area of interest, especially when you're looking at the story on a bigger time frame. So there's a possibility price could still possibly end up coming back in within that area. So just make sure that you also keep that option quite open. But ideally, the best option we do have right now is definitely somewhere within this region. If you can get that pullback, then I think there could be a really good buy somewhere within that region there. So moving on into the next one, which is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, this is a currency pair that we had last week. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. So you can see the three regions right there that we had pointed out. Also what we were expecting. Fortunately, we couldn't get the market pulling back in. Seems like the US dollar was pretty strong. So you can see the market was just moving up inch by inch, hardly any pullbacks. Broke to the upside of this region, pulled back in. This must have been, I think, on Wednesday or something. And after that, definitely reading the story on a smaller time frame, some buying opportunities off that area there. So this week, we're still going to be focusing on buys. But based on the fact that the USD is going to be way stronger than it was last week, I don't know if we're going to get the pullbacks. But ideally, we should always wait for the pullback. So either the market breaks to the upside, get the market pulling back in within here, we could get the buying opportunities, something similar almost to what happened last week. We could possibly end up getting that. But if we get the market pulling back in deeper, because right now we're more or less within that region where we do have some sellers, let's see if they can actually push the market back down. If we get the market coming back in, somewhere as close as possible within here, there could be some really good buying opportunities within that region there. But also remember the region at the bottom right here. It's a long shot, but there's a possibility price can still come back in all the way to within that area. So just make sure that you also keep that option quite open. But remembering that if the market breaks below that region and holds below it, then unfortunately the buying opportunities are out. So moving on to the last one, which is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair we had last week, trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that we had pointed out and also illustrated what we were expecting. Also for this one, you can see that the pullback couldn't come back in deep. Seems like still the USD was pretty strong last week and the Swiss franc didn't really stand a chance. However, you can see that there was a major fight that was going on within here because the market was hardly making higher highs and higher lows. But at least if you did get the buys as close as possible within this region here, just making sure that you're targeting or possibly managing your trades within the area at the top, then you should have been fine. So moving on into this week, these are the three levels that we're going to be watching out for. So you can see that the market is still more or less in some sort of a fight mode type of situation. At least we can see the pullback coming in. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in within here. If we get, hopefully the sellers coming in and them slowing down within that area, we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Of course, the best buy is definitely down within this region here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Alternatively, if the sellers do come in deeper, then there's a possibility they might really need to incite way more sellers before the buyers do end up picking up the market. And of course, when the market comes in within this region here, then lots of traders are definitely going to be looking for selling opportunities at that point in time. And hopefully when that happens, the buyers could possibly end up stepping back in. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Maybe that's what the market might need to possibly end up breaking this sort of deadlock situation that we do have within this region here. So one party really needs to get incited. So just make sure that you watch out for the deeper pullback. But alternatively, you could also find that if the pullback doesn't come back in, then hopefully you'll just need to wait and see whether you can get a breach to the upside. Because if the strength on the USD ends up being persistent and they don't really end up giving the Swiss franc a fighting chance, then unfortunately you'll just have to make sure that you wait for the market to break above that top SNR. Then hopefully after that you could possibly find the buying opportunities resuming. So more or less, hopefully just watch out for those three options right there. And of course, no matter what you do, always make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters. So that's pretty much it for the USD pairs. So back to you, Mitch.
Okay. So hope that's clear. So done the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, as well as the US dollar. So we're going to look at the last currency pairs we're going to be looking at this week. So we'll be looking at the British pound pairs and we want to buy them. So we'll start off with the euro against the British pound. So in this situation, buying the British pound means we are looking to sell since the British pound here is the counter currency. So last week, Our bias on this was actually to look for buying opportunities, but unfortunately, the bias did not work out. You can see the three areas we had pointed out, these three highlighted areas right here. So at the beginning of the week, we needed, or at least what we wanted to see is actually a pullback. So the price did manage to start coming down lower. We did not get the price actually holding above this level, because you can see we did have some sort of a scenario here. But you can see when the price came down, it actually held below. So at that point in time, the price did end up holding to the downside. So we wanted to see whether or not we're going to come back down towards the extreme. But you can see a similar situation. Once the price managed to come all the way down, the fact that we could not get some sort of reaction within this buyer's area, the price broke to the downside and held below, and ideally this pair did fall off our watch list at that time. However, due to the fact that the fundamentals have switched for both of them, we will be looking for selling opportunities on this one this week. So focusing on sales, we'll be looking at these three areas. So right now we have the main sellers area right there. As you can see, these are the sellers during the week who managed to bring this price all the way down, having enough strength to actually break this area, this buyer's area to the downside. So we do know we'll be looking for selling opportunities as long as we're holding below this red SNR. You can see we had this major buyer's area here, and the price does seem to be pulling back towards that location. So we'll be interested to see what kind of reaction we do have within this location right here, because there's definitely some buyers who seem to be pushing the price up within this location. So right now, we are back within a seller's area, but the buyers are coming in a bit too aggressive. So what we could end up seeing the price going all the way to this extreme seller's area, giving us some sort of probe price action signal, and we could end up finding a selling opportunity there. But that's the way, based on how aggressive these guys are coming in. Now, be aware the fact that we're within a seller's area, we could end up seeing a few people being incited for the buy. The price looks as if it's breaking to the upside, but if it comes back in and holds below, then definitely we do know that this seller's area is still holding. Buyers have been incited because of all the late buyers right there, and we could end up finding a very nice selling opportunity coming in. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening, but just watch out for this location. If the price holds above, chances are we could be coming back to the extreme area for us to look for those selling opportunities on the euro against the British pound. So I hope that's clear, the game plan of the euro against the British pound. So let's move on to the next pair we do have, which is the British pound against the Japanese yen. Now, in this kind of pair, our bias last week was to look for buying opportunities, and you can see the buys did work out. The British pound pairs did seem to be quite strong. Now, remember, price last week was at a seller's area, and this is the reason why we say, even though we're at a seller's area, and we always say buy with buyers and sell with sellers, sometimes the sellers might not give us some sort of reaction. If we get the price breaching and holding above, then you can be able to look for buying opportunities, which is the idea that what we had last week. And you can see the buyers managed to break this area to the upside, price held above, and it did give us some nice buying opportunities. Unfortunately, the pullbacks that we're hoping to see either within this area or within all the way down here did not work out. But this week, the bias here is to look for buying opportunities still. So we focus on these three areas. One area is pretty new. The other ones are pretty much similar to what we had last week. But here, our red support and resistance area has moved to the upside. So we will be looking for buying opportunities as long as we're holding above this red support and resistance area. You can see the overall flow of the market has been up, but the buys technically started within this particular area. At least this is where the buyers took over from these sellers who are pushing down lower. So overall, we do want to look for those buying opportunities. Right now, we are, or at least started getting this pullback coming in last week. So we want to see how this market comes in. We can end up getting some sort of probe or price action signal. When the price holds above this particular area, then we can end up still looking for buying opportunities. Now, be aware, even though we want to see if we can grab those buying opportunities down here, watch the story on the 1 hour, because you can see right now we're still bolted back in our buyer's area. So you might even find these buyers actually giving us some sort of reaction, breaking and holding above, and you could find the price actually continuing to go to the upside. So be aware, watch out for this level, and remember, we always point out, read the story on a 1 hour time frame, or at least the 1 hour time frame. Based on this, you can see how the sellers are still pushing down lower. So if you do want to be more conservative, you can see there's some sellers here who are the ones who are pushing down, and they do still seem to be holding the market. You see this area being breached, you might end up finding a very small buying opportunity available. Just watch out for these problem areas. But be aware, overall, since the bias is to look for buying opportunities, we wait to see what kind of pullback we do end up getting. So Hope that's clear on the British pound against the Japanese yen as we move on to the next British pound pair, which is the British pound against the Canadian dollar. These are brand new entered in our watch list. As you can clearly see, we do not have any bias of it last week, but our bias here this week is definitely to look for these buying opportunities. You can see the strength of the British pound coming in, and you can see the correlation happening on all these British pound pairs where they do seem to be pulling back at the moment. You can see we looked at the euro against the British pound. You can see the pullback coming in, even with the British pound against the Japanese yen. Might end up finding the pullback might continue coming in due to the fact that you can see even here on the British pound against the Canadian dollar, we've approached the seller's area, and the pullback is what seems to be coming in right now. So we hope to see if we can end up getting some sort of probe or price action signal within this first problem area. So this will be the main area we'll be focusing on first. Now, be aware if this level doesn't hold, that's when we'll actually look to see if the price actually holds below this area, then we'll look to see if we can end up getting the price coming all the way down to the extreme for us to look for a buying opportunity. Be aware, as long as we're holding above the red SNR, our bias here is to look for buying opportunities. But it's a similar situation if you do see, because right now we're seeing some correlation. The British pound pairs are giving us that pullback. But you never know if this is some sort of incitement. All people who are thinking buy, they start jumping in on sales. Because if the price just decides to go to the upside and holds above, then definitely we are continuing with our buying opportunities here on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. So I hope that's clear in the game plan. At least we are seeing some nice correlation coming in on these British pound pairs. You can clearly see it here as well on the British pound against the Swiss franc. So these are brand new entered in our watch list. Bias here is to look for buying opportunities. You can see the buys have started pushing, at least during the last week, it had been pushing to the upside. So we are fully aware of these problem areas that we do have. So we have an aggressive sellers area right there at the top, and you can see how aggressive those sellers are giving us this pullback. And we are definitely seeing this has something to do with the British pound pairs, all coming down very aggressive. So we'll wait to see what happens. And you can see the reason why we always tell you buy with buyers and sell with sellers. Sellers will always give you some sort of reaction. So right now, as the pullback is coming in, wait to see what happens. The first level we'll be watching out for is this area right here. If you see the price coming down, but it cannot hold up below it, it actually comes back in and holds above, then we definitely know we could end up finding a nice buying opportunity available there. So watch out for this SNR. But if the price, let's say when it comes down, but on the pullback, it pulls back, but it actually holds below, then you could end up seeing the price actually coming all the way to the extreme area. And we look to see if we do see some sort of reaction here, could end up finding the price going all the way to the top. So we'll watch to see what ends up happening. These sellers are coming in a bit too aggressive. And remember, in order to read the details, go to the 1 hour time frame, read the story of the buyers and sellers before you end up looking for those buying opportunities on the British pound against the Swiss franc. So I hope that's clear on all the kinds of pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched all these pairs, the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, the US dollar, and the British pound with all the neutral pairs. So just a quick announcement. Now be aware, we do have fundamentals this week, so you can end up going quickly to see the bias for this week. And remember, we can end up, at least when you're looking at the more longer, or at least the swing trades, that's when we need to actually end up possibly focusing on the higher, so let me just go to it. So we'll only focus on the high impact. So you're seeing we'll remove the 1-star and 2-star and the 3-star events, at least that we'll be looking at this week. You can see we do have a bit on Tuesday, just one on Tuesday, a lot on Wednesday. So Wednesday, we do end up expecting some volatility, or at least a lot of volatility on the US dollar. You can see most of the high impact news this week is for the US dollar. There might be some volatility maybe on Friday for the euro pairs, but due to the fact that they're releasing their GDP, at least this is for the German GDP, so that will definitely affect the euro. But do watch out for these timings. So Wednesday, during the US session, possibly there will be some very nice movements. Either also on Thursday, because we also have the jobless claims orders, which is very high impact news, and we'll watch out for Friday. So I guess that's it, or at least pretty much it for our bias and what we are going to be looking at this week. So I guess that's it for me. So hope everything is clear. Remember, this is going to be the watch list that we're going to be focusing on. And yeah, I want to thank you guys so much. So remember, if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there in the chat box. Remember, we will be posting this up on YouTube. so you can be able to watch it. You're watching it on YouTube. A like and a subscribe would really help out this channel of ours. So I guess that's it from me. Unless John, there's anything else on your side?
No, nothing much. I think just a reminder of the intermediate tomorrow. So hopefully we'll see some guys at Scope Markets tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. for the second session of the intermediate. So if you can, also feel free to join us for that, and we look forward to seeing you there. Also make sure that you do end up bringing a friend as well.
Okay, thanks for that, John. So I guess we'll see you guys next week for the next weekly swing. Or if not, let's hope to see you guys tomorrow for the live trading session. So my name is Mitch. This has been John as well. Thank you guys so much. Hope to see you guys later on. Happy trading, guys. Cheers and bye for now.